The term community investment usually means the money that comes from outside, typically mortgages and business lending from banks, but it can also mean collective investment from within a community where the financial contribution is multiplied by local values. That's the principle behind the community-controlled economy fostered by the Boston Ujima Project. The project will soon come out with its final standards and a list of businesses eligible for support. To tell us about the effort are the project's fund associate, Charles Wallace-Thomas IV, and its director, Nia Evans. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
I want to start with Nia Evans because I think one way to understand what you're trying to do is think about what this could mean for Dudley Square. I mean, how could this change things for the better?
Sure, it's really exciting. So as you said, we are getting ready to release the results of our ballot that 250 voting members voted on. There will be an email that will go out tomorrow with a list of 100 businesses in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. All of the businesses that are currently in Dudley Square are on the list. Haley House is on the list, Black Market is on the list, Dudley Cafe is on the list, and we also had a separate conversation with our members about Jazz Urbane, which is the new restaurant slated to go in there. And so what that means is our community members have an opportunity to invest directly in them and also have conversations with the businesses about how they can cooperate and collaborate to revitalize together.
Now, normally a business sells things without losing money. What's different about these businesses?
The businesses in Dudley Square, they have community support. And so we've done 5 neighborhood assemblies over a series of 1 to 2 years. And we've asked community members, what are the businesses that you love? And so these are the businesses that have been named by community members as businesses that they love. And so our theory is because there is buy-in that's built in, community members will go out of their way to make sure that their investments are paying off. And so we'll engage in creative problem solving to really make sure they're successful.
Charles, you're the fund associate. People are saying, what is this fund? Because there's more to it than just money, right?
Sure, certainly. What's really unique about Ujima is it's the only community-owned and democratically governed investment fund in the nation, so far as we know. And so there are a bunch of different processes involved with getting money from the fund to the businesses. So as Nia mentioned, we got together in a set of assemblies to list the businesses that folks love. And then from there, we are inviting them to come in and join our Ujima Good Business Alliance. And in order to do that, they have to pass through 36 community standards that were developed with our Community Standards Committee, which was elected by Ujima members. And then once they pass through those standards, we go through some standard business due diligence, which includes considerations that are basically social impact considerations from the community standards, as well as traditional business health sort of notions. And then from there, we bring recommendations to the members on the kinds of terms that we could offer a business that's looking for investment, and then the members vote to approve those terms or they vote to not approve them, and then we figure out what to do from there.
Can you tell me a little bit about some of the standards that are incorporated here?
Sure. So the standards are across 8 different categories and include categories like worker power, community ownership, community power, and environmental standards. One standard, for example, is that the pay ratio between the highest paid employee of a business and the lowest paid employee cannot be higher than 5 to 1. We're also asking businesses who are joining the Ujima Good Business Alliance to commit to doing a feasibility study on things like open book accounting and community ownership so that we can really increase the extent to which democracy plays a role in our economies, both at sort of the aggregate level of deciding what to invest in, but also within the businesses themselves.
Yeah, I imagine that this is a corrective for a common problem, and that is that in a lot of neighborhoods, even the poorest neighborhoods in the country, you have chains coming in, sucking money out of the neighborhood. So how much does this change that?
So as Charles said, one of the things that we look at is social impact. And so for a business to receive investment from us, they have to commit to the minimum 36 standards. And so those standards cover some of the areas that he's talked about, but they also ask our businesses to think about community benefit and to think about worker power and consumer power. So to think about how they are investing directly in our communities in addition to locating their businesses in our communities.
Charles, I imagine these standards can also be incentives for business, couldn't they?
Certainly. We've found that, or at least our operating premise is that businesses work better when they work for the communities that they serve. So by abiding by the minimum 36 standards, and then by also finding ways to surpass the standards. So not only do an employee ownership feasibility study, but actually start to employ employee ownership options. These businesses can garner more support and become more integrated in the communities at their end. as a way of offsetting some of the risk that comes with owning and operating a small business.
Right. Yeah, I want to ask you about one of your recent events, because you had some mayors from around the country sit down and exchange some ideas about working or governing with the community. What was that like?
Oh, that was fantastic. So just to give a little bit of wider context about the event, this was done in collaboration with the Workers Lab, which is a community organization in California. And those are three mayors who are doing interesting progressive things in the cities where they are. So we invited Mayor Lumumba from Jackson, Mississippi, who, when he became the mayor, proclaimed that Jackson, Mississippi would become the most radical city in America. Mayor Michael Tubbs from Stockton, California, who's piloting universal basic income in his city, and we see that with the presidential election. That's a part of national conversation. And Mayor Melvin Carter in St. Paul, Minnesota, who's really looking to expand the rich cooperative the cooperative ecosystem that exists there to communities of color in St. Paul. And so these are mayors who already have a progressive vision, who are coming to Boston to learn from Ujima about solidarity economy, to learn about worker cooperatives, and to learn about the assembly process that we've just described. So to learn about how they actually extend the work that they're doing to govern in close partnership with communities.
Right. When I hear that word assembly process, Charles, I think it's almost like candidates campaigning and competing. Is this what business is doing?
Not quite. So we stray away from comparing sort of Ujima assemblies to pitch competitions in sort of a more traditional sense. What we're really trying to do with our assemblies is help folks build and exercise the deliberative muscle that's necessary for effective democracy. So folks have to be informed. Folks have to feel like there aren't barriers to entry to participating in decision making. And so those are the two kinds of, and then folks also have to feel that they're in community. So those are some of the things that we're trying to accomplish by bringing folks together to make decisions together, to interrogate what is important to them and why together, but also to just see each other and know that we're all here together, and we're working on a future that can work for all of us.
I have to ask you also how this works for the people who chip into the fund, because I guess they're taking a risk, but they could get something out of it too, even just financially.
Certainly. So there's a distinction between investors in the fund and Ujima members, and there is even a distinction between types of Ujima members. So there are Ujima voting members, who are the residents of Boston actively engaging in the democratic process to determine how the fund is ultimately dispersed in different aspects of the Ujima economy. And then there are solidarity members, who are folks who support the work that Ujima is doing, but don't feel that they need to have a say in what's going on in the communities. And then any of these folks can be investors, but they need not be investors, or voting members need not be investors to vote in the different Ujima processes.
Is there anything you can say about the next stages in this process that are coming up?
Sure. So as we said just a little earlier, an email will go out to our voting members as well as to people who are affiliated with Ujima to let them know that we have closed these ballots and that we have the official approved list of 150 businesses that Ujima may now consider for investment. And we really want to make a big splash with that, because we want our members, people affiliated with Ujima and other community members, to spot a business that they have a relationship with on the list and make sure that they congratulate them and they let them know, so that when we contact the business understands that this is a serious, real opportunity. And then, as Charles said, we start a conversation with that business. We see if they're interested in joining the Business Alliance, and if they need any financial support or what other types of support they need, and we then start a due diligence process. If we are able, at the end of a process that'll take a couple of months, if we are able to come up with a deal, so to speak, we then present that deal back to our voting members to give us either final approval on that deal or to send us back to work some things out. So this is really exciting for us. So we're slated out of this fund, this $5 million fund, which is the first Democratic fund in the country. We're slated to hopefully make our first investment out of this fund, hopefully before the end of the year.
We should mention, if people want to catch some updates, you've got a website?
Yep, so you can catch us at Ujima, Ujima, Boston.com.
Thank you both very much, Nia Evans and Charles Wallace-Thomas.